So we started the 7th chapter last week, and we discussed the 7th chapter is the Bhakti section. Right? Till the 6th chapter, the focus of Arjun was on the body. And now Krishna hadn't given any details about himself till the 6th chapter. It was in the 6.47, the last verse of the 6th chapter, that Krishna gave a glimpse of himself. Madgatina antaratmana, Krishna said that. And so he's going to elaborate on this now, on the Bhakti section. And Bhakti, it involves action, it involves introspection, and it also involves meditation, right? So as it's always said that Bhakti has all the other limbs of yoga in it, so that's the meaning of it, right? So action comes from Karma Yoga, the introspection part comes from Jnana Yoga, and the meditation part comes from Dhyana Yoga. So all of that is already involved in Bhakti process. As we all know, we do service, we do our chanting, which is our meditation, and then we also introspect. We try to understand what are the anarthas in my heart, and we try to correct them. So all of that is included in the in Bhakti Yoga. So anybody remembers what we discussed last time in the first 3 verses? Any points that you took home?
Verse 7:2 is that we should hear from the Lord and hear with sincerity and eagerness. And he, peace comes from him, and the Lord is our supreme and always our well-wisher.
Yeah, that's a very good point you bring up. I think we also had a slide around it, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Yeah, so this was the first verse, but it had a similar concept that starting from Shrinu, right? So Krishna, the first verse was, as we talked about, it was like a reverse exploration of the whole process. Shrinu, so is the beginning, hearing, right? Then Samagram comes. And then Asamshayam, the doubts go away. And then we take Madashraya. And then last but not least, my asakta manha, that the heart becomes fully connected, attached to Krishna. So that was the process we talked about. Yeah. So, and then we also related it back to the 9 steps of bhakti, the limbs of bhakti that we did in the Nectar of Instruction. And the important concept that we brought out was free from doubt, right? Being free from doubt was the big thing that Krishna was highlighting in this verse. So let me just pull it up. Just a second. Yes, this is the first verse actually. By practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt, right? And we talked at length about doubt. That was an important topic of discussion. That how doubt is a dangerous obstacle on the path of devotional service, on the devotional path. Actually, if our heart is scorched by doubt, the nectar of devotion just goes away, and it gets eliminated. Our heart becomes like a desert. Right? And Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, there was a verse towards the end of the 4th chapter that says that people who doubt neither find happiness neither in this world or the next. And but then doubting is an integral part. Doubting is a sign of intelligence. Srimad Bhagavatam tells us that. So what that means is that we should try to address our doubts intellectually by consulting learned and realized spiritual teachers. And but then the doubt has to be accompanied by faith. That's the more important thing there. But doubt by itself we keep on doubting and doubting and doubting ad infinitum, we'll never reach the conclusion. But if we doubt with this faith, and we also have this understanding that ultimately my intellect can't give me a comprehensive understanding of everything. Even in this material world, my intellect cannot give me a comprehensive understanding of everything. Right? Even material scientists, they acknowledge increasingly that many aspects of universe are incomprehensible. Right? But despite their inability to scientifically crack such aspects, they don't abandon their faith in science. Right? Instead, they focus on those aspects of the universe that are more scientifically amenable and strive therein for progress. So similarly for us who are doing this devotional science, this spiritual science, that we don't abandon our faith. Okay, even though we are unable to get all our answers, even though we have doubts, we are, so we should try our best to get answers to the doubts, but keeping in mind that doubts that by our intellect we'll never be able to understand Krishna completely. If we could do that, then our mind would become better or higher than Krishna, which is not practically possible. So with that thought in mind, that yes, I have doubts, I'll try my best to clarify them, but down deep, I have faith enough that, hey, my intellect cannot I cannot wrap my head around Krishna through my intellect. So I'll have to take a leap of faith. And we always make an inventory of whatever things bring us faith. That was another thing that I think we talked about the last time. So, because doubts is a weakness of heart. It's one of the Hridaya-Daurvalya section that we read about it. I think in Nectar of Instructions. So we should take inventory of what gives us faith and practice those things more regularly. And we should make our memory a treasury. That all the spiritual experience that we had that gave us faith in the past, they should be properly documented. They should be a ready written resource, which we should be able to access and also expand upon. And rather than focusing on our doubts, we reflect on what gives us faith. And in that process, our bhakti prospers. Right? We don't focus on weaknesses. We always focus on our strengths. If Sachin Tendulkar would start lamenting that I'm not good at bowling, and he would forget that he's an ace batsman, giving a cricket analogy, then that's not the proper way to do it. He just focuses on the strength. Hey, I'm good at batting, so I'll focus on my strength. So similarly, when doubts haunt us, we always go back to our inventory of our faith. So I just wanted to highlight this because it's a very important concept. Doubts can very easily kill the bhakti seed that we are trying to grow in our heart, and especially doubts that are without faith. And when we don't clarify those doubts with people whom we have some amount of, we have an understanding with them, we are comfortable asking our doubts with them, and we have some belief that, hey, the answer I'll get is going to be convincing and will be helpful for me to move forward. So that was more of the essence of what we discussed. At least that's the way I always see it, that these chapters on bhakti will help us grow in our bhakti, in our devotional services, if we are able to assimilate this knowledge in the proper way as Prabhupada wants us to have it. Okay, having said that, we'll move on to now. So going back to the slides. So first section, we talked about hearing, right? Krishna said, touch Shrono. That was the whole basis. And then the second section is the all-pervasiveness of Krishna. And just the acronym that I made it to simplify it is head. So hearing everywhere. So 4 to 12 is everywhere. And if we look at it in more detailed way, 4 to 7 will talk about how Krishna is the source of everything, material and spiritual. And then 8 to 12, Krishna will give us some random examples of how to look for Krishna in everything. So we'll cover this section today. So let's see what was there. Okay, so 7.4. Let's go to the verses, but before I jump on the slide. Okay, so the fourth verse is Krishna. So this Krishna, now Krishna is going to start elaborating how he is all pervasive. So he'll start with the material. And you will recall that in the Nectar of Instruction, earlier in the second verse itself, we talked about the three different energies of Krishna. Okay, so Krishna is going to talk about those three energies in these three verses. So 7.4 is Bhumi Rapu Nalo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha Ahankara Itiyame Bhin Prakriti Ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these eight constitute my separated material energies. The important word is bhinna. It's separated from Krishna. It's not. It is Krishna's, but then again, it's not. It's achinta bhed tattva philosophy. So Krishna is going all the way from the gross to the subtle ones. So the gross, earth, water, fire, we can see all that, right? So air, we cannot see air that much. Then mind, intelligence, all that is not visible to us. So he's going, even though all of these are material energies, he's going all the way from the grossest, which we can see, and he's going all the way to a very subtle part. So chapters 7, 9, and 10, they teach us about this aspect of perceiving God, perceiving Krishna. 7th chapter and the 9th chapter, as we'll go into time, will teach that Krishna is the origin of everything. Okay? And 10th chapter will teach us that Krishna is the best of everything. We'll talk about, I think there are 82 vibhutis of Krishna that we'll talk about in the 10th chapter. Okay. So now this 4 to 7, we'll talk about, as I said, the three aspects, right? Jiva, Prakriti, and Jagdish, right? So this is the Jnana Vijnana Sahitam that Krishna talked about in the second verse of this chapter, that I'll teach you all the Jnana and Vijnana, which knowing you won't have anything else to know. So what Jnana and Vijnana we need to know is being started here. Right? So going from all the way from the subtle to the grosser part. So all is Krishna's energy, but it is bhinna. One and different at the same time, just like recorded videos. So I record these videos, somebody plays that video and they'll see me speaking in there, but is it me speaking? It's me, and it's also not me at the same time. So that's the way to look at it. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport, when he discusses these, let me show you this slide. This is, I think, so gross body, what is visible to us, is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Okay, and then the subtle body is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And that's what is being covered in 7.4. In 7.5, Krishna will cover us, living entities, which is the Tathastha Sakti. And then in 7.6, Krishna will tell us that all that is a part of me. So this is a good way of understanding these three verses. Okay, so let's look at the purport. Prabhupada starts talking about the three Vishnus. So where's that? In this different Purusha incarnations. I think we have briefly touched upon this also earlier in our fourth chapter, I think. So that there are three Vishnus, starting with the Mahavishnu, which is the and then Mahavishnu is who's lying on the causal ocean. So he's Mahavishnu, from whose pores different universes are coming out. Then in each universe, Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into that universe. And the third is the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who is as the super soul sitting in our heart. Those are the three forms of Vishnu. Okay. So once again, so Mahavishnu, who is the conglomerate of all energies. Then Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who creates the 14 planetary systems. Then Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who's the Vishnu in this material world. When you read in Srimad Bhagavatam that all the demigods are going to talk to Vishnu, they're going to Kshirodakshay Vishnu. The Kshirodakshay Vishnu is also the super soul in our hearts, but then he's also an individual who is sitting in the Shweta Dweep, which is the Vaikuntha in this material world. Right. So when there is any disruption in this Brahman, in this material world, demigods go to Brahma, and then Brahma goes to Vishnu, and there the Devtas, they recite the Purusha Shuktas. Okay. And it's generally the Kshirodakshay Vishnu who incarnates. right? But during one day of Brahma, so we are in the 28th yuga of the 7th Manu, right? The boss comes, Krishna comes, not as an incarnation, but the boss himself comes, right? So Krishna is not an avatar, he's an avatari. So avatari means one from whom all the avatars come. And that's mentioned in the first canto, third chapter, verse number 20. Ete chamsha kalha pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Indriyari Vyakulam Dhukam Miryanti Yuge Yuge. So Ete Chamsha Kalha Pumsha. If you go back and look at the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, the second chapter, and half of the third chapter, they talk of all these different incarnations of Krishna. They talk of Lord Rama, Buddha, Vaman, Narsingh Dev. They give a brief. I think there's one verse for each one of them, right? And if all of them have been discussed, then Krishna about Ete Chamsha Kalha Pumsha. Ete means these that we have been discussing, either they are amsha of you. Ete cha amsha kalha pumsha. So they are amshas of you. So of Krishna. Ete cha amsha kalha pumsha. Krishna tu Bhagavan is Swayam. Krishna is the Bhagavan. So Krishna is not an avatar, he's an avatari. But generally all the other incarnations that come in, they're coming through the Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Right? That is why this misconception is there that, oh, the Kshirodakshay Vishnu is the boss here. He's the supreme. Yeah. Even though the owner of the company doesn't show for years and years, probably there's a CEO running the company. That's fine. People start thinking that CEO is running it, but no. When the boss comes, even the CEO kind of stands up and shows his respect to the owner of the company. So Krishna is the boss here. So even in materialistic sciences, also, something similar is said, right? I don't know. I have briefly read about this concept called point singularity, just out of curiosity. I'm not a physicist by any chance, but I just read it, and they say that how all the mass at one point of time, all the mass was just accumulated. There was a condensation of all mass, and the mass was infinite density, infinite energy point, right? And then they say that, oh, beyond that, then the Big Bang happened. It's around 13, 15 billion years ago or something. And then the universe emerged from a singularity, a point of that infinite density and gravity. And they said that before that, nothing existed. And if you ask them, what does it mean? They say that before it, everything was mathematically indescribable and physically unverifiable. So similar to what the Bhagavatam teaches us, that the Mahavishnu is the conglomerate of all energies. It's an unmanifested material energy, and then everything manifests from him, right? And I personally would prefer to believe that there is a person manifesting it rather than all of it happening randomly. And we can see it by our common sense that everything is happening so perfectly. So there has to be an intelligence behind it. Summer season is here. Many of you must be planting flowers out in your backyard, and you will notice that in the exact same soil, different plants give different flowers. One are extremely fragrant, one are not fragrant, yellow, pink, green. How can all of that come from a soil which by itself has no fragrance? The seed does not have any fragrance, but the flowers have. So there has to be some sort of an intelligence behind it. It all cannot be random. So that's what. So Prabhupada is bringing the concept of the three Vishnus to expand upon this concept of the material energy, just so that he can elaborate upon that for us. That's the first part of the of these three verses that we're talking about. Then the fifth verse is, besides these, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Right? So now, so all what I have described is inferior, right? So he's saying, what does it say? Let's say, aparayam itastvanya, apara iyam, this inferior, besides this. So what he has described till now is inferior, but beyond this is something also beyond this. There's something beyond this inferior nature, right? So there's another superior energy, para. So prakriti vidhi mein param. So apara and para. There are two different kinds of energies that Krishna is talking about. So And that's who's that? We as a living entity. And we have the ability to exploit the material nature, right? Gadgets, skyscrapers, rockets, all this is being manifested by para, the living entity. Matter by itself is jada, it has no consciousness, it lacks consciousness. But the spirit is chetana, conscious, right? So we are kind of imitation gods, as you can call it, right? But then we give prizes to each other for just being these imitation gods. Somebody creates test tube babies and they give him a Nobel Prize, but no one gives credit to Krishna for creating life, making a life, creating the whole process so perfect. We create a satellite and I become proud, but then no credit is given to Krishna for creating these millions of planets just hanging there in the air, right? So we should not compete with God. We should collaborate with God, collaborate with Him, right? Just like he was mentioning in the what was that verse? Third chapter, I think this is 13th verse. Yeah, Yagya Shishthasi in Santo Muchyate Sarva Kilvisha. Muchyate Sarva Kilvisha. So, as you were saying, so yes, so we live in reciprocation with this creation. We live in a collaboration with this creation. So we should not compete with God. Then it will be a healthy place for us to live and everything will go fine. So when we use these resources for Krishna's service, instead of exploiting them, then everything will flourish, right? So we have to appreciate the proprietorship of Krishna. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagattam jagat. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagattam jagat. That all this place, Ishavasyam, that belongs to Krishna, right? So, but then we are doing the opposite right now. Prabhupada was once in Mayapur and he was talking to this businessman, and so Prabhupada asked him, "Okay, what do you do?" So the person said, "Prabhupada, I have a factory that makes glass." Prabhupada said, "Okay, where does glass come from?" He said, "Silica." In common terms, it's like sand. Sand is also silica. Okay, where does sand come from? By the time the man understood what Prabhupada is trying to say, and he says, "Prabhupada, everything is coming from Krishna." And Prabhupada said, "Oh, then you're a thief. You're stealing from Krishna." And then that man very humbly accepted. But he said, "But Prabhupada, I also give charity to the temples." And I said, "So then, okay, then you're a small thief then." So we, as I was saying, we all are imitation gods, trying to act like God, but not giving credit to God. So that's the concept. So we are a higher energy, and we are exploiting this lower energy, right? So what we are doing right now, at least what I am doing, you might not be, is that I'm taking this energy and I'm utilizing it selfishly, right? And then when this material nature goes crazy, we start asking that famous question: why does bad happen to good people? Right? So when we realize this exploiting nature, we should we go to Krishna. So that shouldn't be the way to interact with this nature. We should interact with it, understanding that it's Krishna's, and use only what is necessary for us. Right? The Ishavasya principle. Ishopanishad, the first verse is the Ishavasya principle. We'll read it when we come to that. Okay, so those are that's this verse that Prabhupada is talking on. And Prabhupada is saying, let's see, there was one sentence that I liked. I'm not sure if I highlighted it. I'm looking for it was, okay, here it is. This is. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. Right? The distinction between living entity and the Lord is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Okay. So yes, so we are all the energetic, or we are all the energies of Krishna. We are not the energetic. So we are supposed to be a part of Krishna. We don't have any independent existence, right? So, but then we unintelligently, I unintelligently start thinking that I am the energetic. So these 5 elements you can understand like they're like the hardware, and then the mind, intelligence, and ego are like the software, and I'm the operator, right? And when my hardware is not working, it's not usable anymore. So those what are the 5 basic elements? Earth, water, fire. They're my body. And when this body is not usable anymore, I take out my software and I plug it into another hardware. That is basically birth, if you understand it. So the important part to understand here is that we are exploiting the resources, which we're not supposed to do. So Krishna is highlighting that part in a more like a sarcastic way. And then coming to verse number 6. All created beings have their source in these 2 natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. So now Krishna is giving the final statement. That now the third personality comes into picture, Krishna. And Krishna is all inclusive. He is the cause of creation and he is the cause of dismantling everything. So the glory of Krishna is that he is all pervading, not just in sense of time, but also he's the only existence, right? Everything also exists as his energies. So understanding it from that perspective, that everything is there, is is from Krishna. Yeah. And the Prabhupada is going to highlight that everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. There has to be a product of matter and spirit. Nothing can move by itself unless the spirit comes and acts on it. A stone can just sit there for thousands of years, nothing's going to happen. A living entity has to come, pick up that stone, probably shape it up, use it to build a house or some whatever purpose maybe. So then that activity happens. Till then, there's nothing that's going to happen. And then when Krishna says that there's a source in everything, and Krishna is the origin and dissolution of all, right? Everything exists in him, right? So he's all pervading. And pervading, how does he pervade everything? As the super soul. Right? Is Krishna personally in his two-armed Shamsundar form doesn't pervade everything. His ete chamsha kalapamsha, his parts and parcels, they pervade. So everything in this creation has a super soul in it. Okay? That's why they say right that Krishna is in every atom in this creation. So, but then to make it so, Krishna is there in every atom, but then for it to become active, the living entity also has to come into the picture. For example, a stone is also made of millions of atoms. So Krishna is there in the stone also, right? But there is no living entity. So there's a super soul, but no living entity in there. That is why it's not moving. So Krishna is everywhere. So he's all pervasive in the sense that as a super soul. Okay, so this is okay. So these were the three energies, different energies. Yes, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So can you go to that purport, Prabhuji? Spirit and matter. So Prabhuji, I did not understand this part. Matter is created by spirit. What does that mean?
So what Prabhupada means is, let's read the whole sentence. Spirit is the basic field of creation and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain, rather this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. So I'm going to read the purport so that it'll come out clear by itself. This material body is developed because spirit is present within a matter.
Mm-hmm.
A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because that superior energy, spirit soul, is present. So that's what it means. That the matter is being, so like a child is growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a child's body, if there is no living entity in it, it's not going to grow. So
Mm-hmm.
in one sense, the body is being created by the living entity in it. That's what it means. Understand that way. So the matter, this body of mine is matter, earth, water, fire, and ether.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am not in this body, if I leave it, then this body is not going to grow anywhere further. So it won't be created any further. The soul is creating my body, right? As they say in science that every 7 years, we are practically a new body. Every single cell of our body has changed. So my spirit soul, the living entity, me, I am creating this body. That's what it means by what Prabhupada says, matter is created by spirit. Did that make
Yes,
any
Prabhu. Makes sense. Thank you, Prabhu.
And you can see in everything that, as I mentioned, the example of like there is sand all over the world, right? So, but then when a living entity picks up that sand, and then he adds some water, and you can bake it, then it becomes a pot. So that matter was created by the spirit. Otherwise, by itself, it was nothing. It was just sitting there. So that's what it means. What Prabhupada means by that. Okay, yes. So after this, there will be a slight change. So any thoughts? Anybody else has any comments or anything else on their mind?
Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada quotes Katha Upanishad 2:13 a lot, and he quoted it in this verse.
Yeah.
And I've read it in previous verses too. So I was trying to Google the full verse. If you have it, can you share it?
I can share it with you. Prabhupada has given us full verse also in other texts. I can send it to you. Not in Bhagavad. I don't remember seeing it in Bhagavad Gita, but I remember seeing it in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Any more? Hi, Prabhu.
I have a question. I am confused by this Nityanam, Satanam. I always see that everywhere. What is it? What is the breakdown of that?
So Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. So Nityo Nityanam. So Nityo means living entity. So there are a lot of Nityas. Nityas means they are eternally existent. Nitya, practically the exact meaning of the word Nitya means eternally existent. So
okay.
There are unlimited number of Nityas, living entities. But there is one Nityam who is maintaining all of them. So Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. There are many Chetanas, there are many consciousness. But then there is one supreme consciousness who's maintaining all of them, which is Krishna. So let me actually pull it up. No? You brought it up, Prabhu. I can, Prabhupada has probably given a description of it. I'll just pull that up. Give me 1 second so I can read it. But yeah, broadly, that's what it means, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay, so the living entity and one supreme entity. Then Chetanas is the
Chetana means consciousness.
Oh, consciousness.
Yeah. So okay. So there is this lecture that Prabhupada gave in on the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So I'm going to read it from you, and I can send this link to on our WhatsApp group. So the whole verse goes, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Ya Bahunam Vidadhati Kaman. So Nitya means eternal, and Nityanam means plural number of Nityas. So there are many Nityas. I'm just reading verbatim from Prabhupada's lecture. There are many Nityas means many living entities, but there is one Nitya supreme, that is God. He's also a living entity like us. Then where is the difference? The difference is we learn from the Vedic land, Eko Bahunam Vidadhati Kaman, which is the next part of this verse, that singular number Nitya, eternal, maintains the plural number Nityas. So we are within the plural number Nityana. So conclusion is that God is the supreme being and we are all living beings. So our relationship is very intimate. Qualitatively, we are one because we are part and parcel. So God is eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. Therefore, our position is also the same, but in minute quantity. His knowledge is great, therefore God is great. Our knowledge is limited. Because we've got limited potencies, therefore we are called living entities. And God has got unlimited potency. Therefore, God is great and we are small. So that's the essence that Prabhupada is giving. So, so that's what it means, Prabhupada.
Thank you.
That one living, and so millions of living entities being taken care of by that one supreme living entity. And similarly, multiple chetanas, consciousness, being taken care by that one supreme consciousness. So, Eko Bahunam Vidadhati Kama. That Bahunam means many. Eko means one. So that one is taking care of that Bahunam, Chetanas, the consciousness of the living entities. That's what it means.
Thank you.
I'll send this lecture out. And if I find anything else also, I'll send that. Okay, anything, any more on anybody's mind? We can move forward. Okay, so nothing. So now from 7, sorry, I've got a. So in 7th now, Krishna is going to say that there is no truth superior to him. This is a very famous verse. And as we mentioned last time, that a lot of people have this, how do you call it, a sense of all-pervasive envy that, when Krishna says that he's the supreme, they just become a bit uncomfortable, right? And so Krishna is kind of just establishing something more. So when in the bhakti sections, Krishna becomes very clear that I am the supreme, man mana bhava mad bhakto, so on and so forth. And it might make some people uncomfortable that how can Krishna be so like an arrogant person that he's telling himself to be. But he's not arrogant, he's just being factual. That's the truth. He's just presenting the truth. So here also a similar thing is being mentioned. It's a very famous verse. I'm not sure, I think it is in a list of memorizing also, but it's a good one. Mata paratram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre mani ganaiva. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as the pearls strung on a thread. Now, it doesn't get any more clear than this, frankly. Right? Just imagine Krishna is saying it so clearly that there is nothing superior to me. Mata paratram nanyat. There's nothing more superior to me. So, Mai is a very personal way of saying it, right? Sarvam and Sarvam. Mata paratram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. Mai sarvam idam protam. So, Sarvam refers to everything, conscious and unconscious, right? Everything. So, finally, he says, what is he saying? That he's the thread. The thread is pervading through the pearl. It is not the pearl, right? So everything in this world we see as Krishna's mercy, right? That's the beauty of it. And just look at it, how humbly Krishna is presenting it. He's not calling himself the pearl, right? When you look at a necklace, nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks about the thread. But here Krishna is saying, I'm the thread that is going through all of them. So it's not like I am not valuable. I'm also important. But then I'm being, my importance is established by the thread that is going through me and making me that beautiful necklace that it is. So we see everything as Krishna's mercy, right? When you might have seen that, or you might have got it done, is that we get puja done for many different things, right? We get a car puja done, and sometimes people joke about that, and some people even joke about saying that, hey, you pray to a boar, right? We have our boar incarnation that comes. Some people make fun of that also, but then the essence to understand is that we are not praying to a car when we do car puja. We are not praying to a boar when we are respecting the boar incarnation. But what we are doing is we are praying to Krishna, who is pervading through all of that. That is why the Sanatana Dharma, the concept of namaste is there. The namaste, the concept means that I am paying obeisances to the divine in you. So we go beyond that. And that's what Krishna is establishing, the Mata Paratram Nanya, that I am the one that is in everything, conscious and unconscious, right? So even though we pray to a car, we are kind of appreciating God's grace in the form of this vehicle. We see Vaman Deva, dwarf boy, we see Matsya Avatar, we see Kurma, we see all. We are appreciating Krishna's grace coming in different forms to establish dharma in this society, right? Sometimes people think that we are a pantheistic religion. No, we don't pray to everything, but we pray to the God who pervades everything. Pray to Krishna, who's everywhere. He's one. We are not a pantheistic religion. We are a monotheistic religion, and the monotheistic boss is Krishna. That's whom we are praying to. And Krishna is making this very clear for us in this verse. Okay. And Prabhupada is quoting this verse from Upanishad here. I want to see what else is. Okay, so Prabhupada is quoting a lot of Shvetashvatara Upanishad here. Yes. So one, you have noticed that Prabhupada quotes a lot of Upanishads, right? So Prabhupada quotes Upanishads with a very reason. Prabhupada has this, his oceanic intelligence is exemplary, and just we can just look at it with awe and wonder how Prabhupada did that. But he uses Upanishads when he has to smash impersonalists, right? Right? Impersonalists think that they have an upper hand when it comes to Upanishads. They think that Upanishads are our books. And they always say, oh, the bhakti is for the weak people. We read this in one of the verses earlier, that bhakti is easy, or it's for the weak-hearted, it's for the sentimentalists. And they quote Upanishads. That's why Prabhupada brings Upanishads right there. So Prabhupada defeats them right in their homeland. No? Impersonalists would say, oh, the Puranas, the Smritis, they all are bhavuk, they are all sentimental. So, but then Prabhupada proves his point through Upanishads. That's the beauty of what Prabhupada has given us. Prabhupada didn't have to do that. Prabhupada's purports are his own realizations. These are not academic expositions. These are his own realizations. And that's more than enough for a fertile heart who has a little bit of faith and shraddha to pick it up and elevate themselves with it. But then Prabhupada knows that there will be many people who will be full of doubt, who will be coming from an intellectual perspective and will question it. So he said, okay, here you go. I'm going to bring out everything from Upanishads also to prove my point. And that's why you'll notice Prabhupada quotes a lot of Upanishads across Bhagavad Gita. If I remember correctly, I think there are 27 or 31. This number of Upanishads that he quotes. That's a number that I have on top of my mind, but it might be more than that. But yeah, he quotes lots of Upanishads. The more important part of this verse is that Mata Paratram Na Anyat. It's a very personal way of saying it. That nothing is more superior to me. Let's just look at this Upanishad, what Prabhupada is saying in it. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There's no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. So it's the person that they're talking about. Purushena, right? The impersonalists, they say that, oh, God doesn't have a form. But here Prabhupada is quoting an Upanishad, which is saying Purushena. Prabhupada translated the Ishopanishad, right? The 14th verse of Ishopanishad, it's Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasthapitam Mukham Tattvam Pushana Pavarno Satyam Dharmaya Drishyate. So what the speaker is saying of Ishopanishad, that Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasthapitam Mukham. Mukham, the word Mukham is there, face. Right? So what the speaker is saying, that please remove the curtain of this effulgence so that I can see your face. Okay? So all Upanishads, they talk of God as a person, but then you can also misinterpret it if you have that wrong conception. So that's Prabhupada establishing that. Okay. So from now 8 to 12, Krishna is going to give many examples. Right? He's going to give description through examples, how he's the essence of everything. So he's going to substantiate the verse he's just said, Mada Paratram Nanyat Kinchasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Maniganaiva, by examples. Right? How Krishna is the underlying thread of everything. He's going to explain here. And he's going to start with water. Rasoham Apsu Kanteya Prabhashmi Shashi Shuryo Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabdhake Aurusham Rishu. O son of Kunti, I'm the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, and the sound in ether and ability in man. Okay. Just one thing, I always had this doubt, what does this ether mean? What everybody says, ether, what is this ether? So basically, ether is the space. if I try to give you with an analogy, when we type on the laptop, right, we're typing words. But if you remove the space out of those words, it will nothing be but gibberish. You'll not be able to understand it. So the space, which is all pervasive, is what is giving shape and meaning to everything that is existing in this world. That is ether, basically. That's what ether means. I had this question for a long time. What is this kham? Kham mano buddhi revacha. What is this kham that Krishna is talking? That's ether. So everything that exists, right? When you can, even in, we know that, right? We go from atmosphere, stratosphere, what else? All these spheres, right? A point comes and there is no air, you cannot breathe, but then there's still something existing. So that's ether. So ether, that's ether. And sound is the first. Let's go to that later. Let's come to the taste of water. So yes, Krishna is saying rasoham apsu kante is the taste of water, right? So it is extraordinary that how, until I had never read this verse, I never paid attention to this. And you can practically put this on your water bottle. Rasoham apsu kante. That whenever you drink, you can remember Krishna. So we have to train ourselves to perceive Krishna, like just like a car mechanic. A car mechanic can just listen to the car running sound of that car, and he can tell what's the problem with the car just by hearing it. So there is a receptivity that is important. Right? There are instructions available everywhere in the world, but unless I am not receptive to receive them, unless I have created the proper environment in my heart and mind, I will not be able to receive them. Right? Many times people come in contact with good instructions, but it doesn't take root. People don't pick it up, and it's nothing but their misfortune. You can't do anything about it. You know? You all, you reach out to so many people, you talk to people, you convince them, you try to tell them the benefits of bhakti, you give them a book, so many things. But how many of them actually come to bhakti? Rare, right? Prabhupada would always smile that don't think about those who left, be amazed at those who stayed back. Prabhupada used to say that. So there is so much of knowledge around us, but if I'm not receptive, I'm not ready to pick it up, then it's not going to fructify. Going back to the original concept we discussed in this chapter, doubts, but with faith. There has to be some faith. And the meaning of the word faith by itself, you ask that there is this understanding that I'm not complete and there is something for me to know. That's what basically faith means, if you understand that. Curiosity can just be, oh, I want to know. There is no understanding that I'm missing something. Sorry, my throat is just giving me a lot of trouble. But so curiosity means, okay, I just want to know it. I'm not missing it, but I just want to know it. But faith is a step ahead. Faith means that I'm missing something and then I want to know it. So, rasoham apsu kante. Right? When we have the right environment in our heart, the higher levels of bhajan, higher levels of bhakti, they will descend upon us. Right? This is not something that I can just I can get up and grab it. That doesn't happen that way. You know? As Prabhupada says, you be steady in your practice, and in due course of time, you will ripen. And all you need to do is just get attached to Krishna. And even Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Sastri says, Tena Krina Prakaranena Manha Krishna Nivesha. Somewhere or the other, you bring Krishna in your life. And that's what Krishna is explaining in these verses 8 to 12. Somewhere or the other, bring me in your life. You drink water, you think about me that I'm the taste of water. Right? So, however you may be attached to Krishna, it's good. Right? In the beginning, we all do Vaidhi Bhakti. We just follow the process being given to us by our seniors, by Prabhupada, by senior devotees, by our spiritual teachers. And that's okay, right? So just stay in the game, stay steady, and keep doing it, right? And when we continue in this position, then Laulyam comes. The word Laulyam is very interesting. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 22nd chapter, I think it's Mahaprabhu is giving Sanatana Goswami or Rupa Goswami, one of the Goswamis, he's explaining bhakti to them. And he says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyate Kuto Api Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Api Mulyam Eklam Janma Koti Sukriti Na Labhyate. Right? So what he's saying is that Laulyam is needed. That Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Api Labhyate. That the only thing that you need in bhakti is lolyam, the intense greed. Lolyam is English, if you translate in English, is intense greed. Right? That's the word only needed. And when you have that greed in your heart, Krishna automatically manifests there. But then where does that greed come from? That greed comes from by being the 3 S's that we have read: strict, serious, and sincere in our practice. Right? And then Krishna comes in. And I think we read about it, right? That initially there is some initial grace for us. Krishna lets us come into bhakti, lets us meet devotees. But then there is an endeavor period. An intense endeavor has to be there. Then Krishna's full grace manifests. Because Krishna also wants to know whether we are serious or not. That's where the steady part comes in. So all we have to do is just be steady in our bhakti. And then Krishna manifests in our lives. I'm not trying to be great. I'm not trying to be, or not to have any big shot ideas that, hey, 10 years from now, I want to be the GBC or I want to be a GBC member. All that is nonsense. It's not, obviously, they are doing an excellent job. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I shouldn't have that desire that I need this material position or that. That's not at all important. Just being steady in our bhakti is more than enough for Krishna to manifest his grace on us. Right? So, that lolyam needs to be awakened, which comes from service. And service is the beginning. And where does service come from? And service also comes from the fact that we have Shraddha in our heart, that this is something I should do. And that Shraddha comes from all the accumulated Sukriti that I have done in the past. Right? That is why Krishna says, Manushyanam Sarveshu, Manushyanam Sarveshu, Kashya Datade Siddhe, Datam Abhi Siddharam, Kashya Mameti Tatvata. That was the second verse. That was the second verse that we read of this process, of this chapter. That out of millions, only a few come to Krishna. Why? Because their Sukriti has not yet fully manifested to come to Bhakti. And that is why the concept we discussed, was it the last class, was that how Devahuti is saying to Kapila Muni that Aho Bata Swa Pachato Gariya, that a person who is chanting your name has gone through, has surpassed all the other yoga forms. So all that accumulated Sukriti has now eventually manifested as faith, service, and eventually association, and then more and more bhakti manifesting in my heart, and then taking me back home, back to Godhead, to Krishna. That is the whole process, how it manifests itself. So, this is the verse here that we talk. So yeah. We get strength from our numerical quota that we put in every day, right? We just keep showing up for our bhajan, the 4 regulative principles, chanting, service, and then very soon the bhajan will rewrite everything for us. So that's the basic essence, that we just follow that, creating the right environment in our heart. So Krishna is saying, I'm the taste of water, but that doesn't mean Krishna is reduced to that. That's also a thing to understand. So just like if you're standing in the middle of an ocean, if you pick up water of that ocean in a glass, you have water of that ocean, but that's not the entire ocean. So Krishna, even though he's the taste of water, but then Krishna is not reduced to that. Right? And if you notice, in one sense, water is that what makes all the tastes accessible to us. Right? It gives taste to all other objects that we consider tasty. If you notice, right, what is saliva? Saliva is nothing but water with a lot of chemicals in it. And that's what makes it taste. Many times if you are sick, even good food tastes bitter. Why? Because the saliva is just working, is dysfunctional, not letting you taste that. So taste is the water is an important factor, right? And then comes Prabhashmi Shasi Shurayo, right? So he's the light of the sun and the moon. We can perceive Krishna in that also. When you look up the sun, it's a very cold day, and you're just basking in the warmth of the sun. You can just be appreciative that, hey, the sun is coming, it's Krishna, right? And then moonlight, right? Moonlight is very soothing. So Krishna has this beautiful day lamp and a night lamp, right? So the whole concept boils down to the fact that we can connect everything to Krishna and remember Krishna. Yena kena prakarena mana Krishna niveshay. But somewhere or the other, we have to bring Krishna into the heart, and this is a very easy way of doing it. Just like when we are at home, right? You see the shoe lying around of your baby, and you suddenly have this warmth in my heart. Oh, my baby's shoe. So the shoe by itself is nothing but a unhygienic piece of dress, if you would say that. But then just because it is your child, you have a connection to it. Similarly, when we see everything as Krishna's, then we become conscious of Krishna. So Prabhashmi Shashi Surya, that is the light of the sun and the moon. He is the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Okay, so that's an important aspect. He's Om in the Vedic mantras. I think I had a slide for this that I made. Let me see if I can pull that. Okay, this is the one. So Prabhupada has told us that the Om word represents everything. So the word represents Krishna. And Krishna will say this in the 10th chapter, Aksharanam Akaro Asmi. The word U part of Om indicates Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Krishna. And the word Ma indicates the living entities, the jivas, which are us. So Krishna is the essence of all of them. So that's why Krishna is saying Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. It's a syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. And in case you want to read more about the concept of Om, Prabhupada has talked about it elaborately in these 2 verses I put there, in case you want to learn more about this concept of Om and how does it, what is it in a broader sense. So these 2 verses, Prabhupada talks in depth about the concept of Om. So I'm not going to go in detail in this concept. Okay, so syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, and the sound in ether and the ability in man, right? So he's a sound in the ether and the ability in man, right? So sound is the first thing that establishes itself. And even taking a step back before that. So when you talk of the word Om sometimes, and just I wanted to bring this fact, is that Om is just an impersonal way of connecting with Krishna. So Om just invokes the impersonal part, right? Just by example can be referring to the Prime Minister by name versus as Mr. Prime Minister. In India, people who are close to Narendra Modi, they call him Naru Bhai. And then people who are close to probably, I don't know, Donald Trump, if somebody's close, they might call him Donnie or something of that sort. But so Om is more like an impersonal way of addressing Krishna, and Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a personal way of addressing Krishna. There is a difference in the level of intimacy, right? So then, just want to bring that out. So now ether is the medium by which the sound is propagated, right? So that's it. So that's what Krishna is saying, that I'm the sound in ether, K or Kham, right? So sound is the source of everything, all creation. That's as explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Then comes Paurusham Rishu. So Paurusham means is the ability of different people. Human beings have ability to get things done in terms of, they can do so many things, right? So Krishna is saying, I am the ability in man. Without ability, we cannot do anything. And at the same time, these abilities are not ours. They are not our entitlements. We don't feel entitled about it. They are just gifts. They are endowments, right? They have been given to us by Krishna, right? Therefore, we should not feel proud about a service. Once Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, many of his disciples, they went to him and said, this person, they were talking about another disciple of that, he's got attached to his service, and he's full of pride and so on and so forth. So then Bhakti Saraswati Thakur called that disciple, and he said, from tomorrow onwards, you're going to go to that other mutt and serve there. And he immediately agreed. And he said, that's fine, Maharaj, I'll do that. Then immediately Bhakti Saraswati Thakur said, no, you're not going anywhere, you stay here. So what Bhakti Saraswati Thakur was demonstrating is that as long as you're doing the service without being attached to it, that's perfection. Don't be attached to a service. Services can be taken away anytime, can be given to you anytime. They are coming as mercy from Krishna. Don't become attached that this is my service. I am going to do it. I am the one in control. We should not do that. And so there's another example in Bhagavatam that Arjun's qualities were taken away when his job was done. You all must have read that section, that how when he was bringing the 16,000 wives of Krishna to Hastinapur, there were some local goons. He just came and abducted all those queens. So Krishna could, and Arjun couldn't even fight against them. Arjun, who is the supreme archer, couldn't fight against them. So Krishna takes away those qualities when they're of no need. So we should not be attached to those qualities. But on the other hand, we should also learn to appreciate those qualities. Once Prabhupada was going in the aeroplane, and Indradyumna Maharaj was there with him, and Indradyumna Maharaj tells this story that how there was a movie of Charlie Chaplin running there in the plane, and so Indradyumna Maharaj thought that, hey, this is not good. We should not watch the movie. And Indradyumna Maharaj just moved his face away from the TV, and then he started chanting mantras loudly. Devanasmin Mathadehe Kaumaram Yogananda. He started chanting mantras. And then, but after a few minutes, he thought, let me see what Prabhupada is doing. And he looked at Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was watching the movie. And Prabhupada was laughing heartily. So in the Indradyumna Maharaj became confused. Like, isn't this material? So then he gathered the courage to ask Prabhupada. And he said, and what Prabhupada told him was, so he asked Prabhupada, watching movies, is it okay for us? Prabhupada said, I was appreciating Krishna, who has given this Paurusham to this person, this ability to this person, Charlie Chaplin, that he can make millions of people laugh. Right? But then we should not behave like that. Okay, we're not perfected souls like Prabhupada. I'm just giving you an example. Don't try to act like Prabhupada falsely. Once Prabhupada was in Iran, and the azan was being recited. So Prabhupada stopped talking. He closed his eyes and he listened to azan. One of his disciples said, Prabhupada, wouldn't it have been good if they would have chanted Hare Krishna so loudly? And Prabhupada said, don't try to make me sectarian. They are trying to connect with God in their own way. And Prabhupada was appreciating that. That's the appreciation of the ability in others. Bhaktivinoda Thakur would say that, right? That when I see somebody else praying in a different form, my appreciation deepens from my own system of worship. That my Lord is one, it's not two, but I'm respecting that there are so many ways of reaching out to him. So that's the way to look at it, that we appreciate the ability in others. And so this is a good way of understanding of not being envious of others and others' practices. Just understanding that they're just practicing in a different way. They have a different ability has been endowed to them. Okay, so this is 8. Let's just go to 9. Okay, Prabhupada is saying, one who knows God knows that the impersonal conception and personal conception are simultaneously present in everything, and there is no contradiction. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya established his sublime doctrine, Achinta Bhed Bheda Tattva, simultaneously one and difference. So, Krishna can be impersonal also, and Krishna can be personal also. We are not going to say that, oh no, Krishna, because if I say that Krishna cannot be personal, then he's lower than me because I'm a person. Simultaneously, if I say that Krishna is only a person and not impersonal, I'm saying that Krishna cannot be present in everything, then he cannot be all-pervasive. So Mahaprabhu taught us that Krishna is simultaneously one and different. He's impersonal and personal at the same time. Okay. So the next aspect Krishna is going to establish is that I'm the fragrance of the earth. I'm the original fragrance of earth. I'm the heat and fire. I'm the life of all that lives. And I'm the penance of all the ascetics. So Punya Gandha. So Punya, Prabhupada is telling us, is original, not degraded. Punya means which is not decomposed. It's original. So if you would have noticed, if you go to India, or not India, sorry, anywhere where there is just soil, it's not been contaminated. There is no construction going on around it. All of course, earth has a very distinctive fragrance, right? And you can put a seed in the ground. The seed and the soil, they will not have any fragrance, but the flower that comes out has fragrance. So it's always amazing to look at that. So the earth has a natural fragrance to it. That's what Krishna is saying, that I am that fragrance. Okay. And Prabhupada is saying the uncontaminated flavor, the original flavor which permeates everything is Krishna. I'm the heat and fire. Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasha, right? Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasha. Vibhavasha is fire, Tejas is heat. And I'm the heat of the fire. And then Teja can be, Teja means that it can be that what we use to cook food, we digest food, we illuminate things around us, protects us from cold and darkness. So all that is Teja. Okay. Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu. I'm the life of all that lives. He's the life of all that lives, right? In the what was that, in the first chapter? In the first chapter, we read that when Arjun asked Krishna to take him to the middle of the battlefield, right? And Krishna says there, Paschaitan Samavetan Kuruniti. Right? Krishna is glancing and showing Arjun, hey, Arjun, look at all these people who have assembled. So by Krishna's glance, all the lives of all those living entities who were fighting against Pandavas was reduced because they were supporting Duryodhana, right? So Krishna could control that. Krishna, because he is the life of everybody that lives, he can shorten and extend it. So Krishna was not happy with the way all those people had behaved when a pure devotee was being humiliated, Draupadi. So Krishna was very upset. So he reduced their life. So Krishna is the Jivanam of all the Bhuteshu, of all living entities. And then Tapaschasvi Tapashvishu, right? Sometimes we do austerities, right? Like Janmashtami, we fast on them. We distribute books on summers on the road. And all that is Krishna, right? Tapa, all that tapa we do eventually leads us to Chit Shakti, as Prabhupada says. It leads us to, not Prabhupada, Bhakti Sastri Saraswati Thakur says. Chit Shakti means spiritual blood. So these are some brief and random listings that Krishna is giving about himself. The duration of man's life is also due to Krishna. Therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. I gave the example of people at the battlefield. I'll take a pause here. Anything that we have 3 more verses we can easily cover, but anything on your mind that you would like to bring out, or anything that's contentious?
Prabhu, in 7.7, I was appreciating how Prabhupada is describing the absolute truth. Because sometimes we get that question in a temple or during some, book distribution, what is the absolute truth? So Prabhupada nicely explained it, it's a supreme person, cause of all causes.
Yeah.
And the supreme truth is a person, the personality of Godhead. So it's just appreciating Prabhupada's, really nice explanation of what is the absolute truth.
Yes, yeah, no, that's a good point you bring up. Yes. So Krishna, and Prabhupada quotes this first verse of Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. And then, so yes, you rightly put it out that, people can ask us these questions. What does it mean, absolute truth? So we can quote Brahma Samhita. I brought one verse out. What is that? The 1:328. Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. So all these verses, we can, we can collect them and be ready if somebody asks them. And then, yes, Prabhupada brings out the Svetashvatara Upanishad also. Okay, anything else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you mentioned that if we have a service and we become attached, and then Krishna takes it away, if say that we are attached to that service and it starts to affect us, what should we do to prevent it from really affecting our consciousness?
So you mean that the service is affecting your consciousness?
Well, the fact that we were attached to the service and then it got taken away and then we become disturbed.
Yes. So Prabhu, obviously it is going to disturb you, but then whenever such things happen, we see them as Krishna's plan to bring us closer to him. That's one of the affirmations that I really like, is that whatever is happening to me is Krishna's plan to bring me closer to his lotus feet. If you keep reminding yourself of that, you will be able to come out of that pain or whatever that mushy feeling in your heart that you're having, that hey, the service was taken away from me. But you have to understand that Krishna gives and Krishna takes back. If you look at it from that perspective, you will not have pain or you won't have that much of anxiety. The reason I have anxiety is because I thought that some human being took it away from me. That how dare this guy take away this service from me? That is the problem that comes in. That is what causes the anguish in my heart. But if I understand that Krishna is giving it to me, Krishna is taking it away from me, then that anguish will not be there. because I'm depending on Krishna for the service. So it's never that anybody can take away service from you. Is Krishna doing it just because he has a bigger purpose behind it? Look at it from that perspective. And initially just try to be not attached to it, but I can understand it's not easy to do that. We get attached. But when the service gets taken away from us, remind yourself that it's Krishna. Krishna is really focusing on you. He's really paying attention on you now. He's saying that, hey, Gopal, you've been working very hard. I see that you've been steady in your practices. And now I need to just fine tune it a bit. So for that, I'm just going to take away this service from you. Right? In the, which verse is that? 10:888. 10:88:8 was that. I'll pull out that verse. I like that verse very much, even though it can be a bit disturbing for some people. But right, Krishna says that when I become very happy with somebody, I take away everything. What kind of a God is he? Right? Let's say that. So I'll just pull that verse. I'll show you what it is. 10:88:8. Is it 10:88:8? Oh yes, 10:88:8. This is one of my favorite verses. Let me share it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question related. Like suppose, some service is taken away from you. How is it determined that it is Krishna's will, or is it our fault? Like it's because of our fault that's been taken away. How will we distinguish between those two situations?
Okay, I'll come to that, Mataji. I just want to read this verse. So Krishna is saying here, if I especially favor someone, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. Then the relatives and friends of such a poverty-stricken man abandon him. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. What a contradictory phrase, right? Krishna is especially favoring you, but then he's taking away things from us. So always understand that if anything is going away, it's Krishna's mercy. No human being can take it away from you. If a person could take away service from you, he would automatically become higher than Krishna, right? Krishna has a role in it. Krishna is playing a role in it. He's just executing it through that one particular devotee who took away the service from you or who behaved in a way that hurt you so much. But it's eventually Krishna who's acting through that person. That person is just an instrument. We never see that person at his fault, right? So we don't we don't ascribe anybody else with that problem. We say, no, this is Krishna's way of teaching me that there is something else. There's a much bigger purpose behind it. He's fine-tuning it for me. Once we come to bhakti, whatever problems that come our way are not problems actually. They are Krishna's way of kind of just realigning us to come to him quickly. And so that was the part, Gopal Prabhu. Did that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu, exactly the answer. Explained everything that I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, on the same topic, we know that each jiva is a marginal energy of the Lord, and so each jiva is given free will. So, how can we always attribute that, attribute some cause and effect to Lord Krishna when in fact, other jivas, if the jivas have free will, then they could be cause of someone taking someone's service, and it not necessarily the Lord doing that, because each jiva is given minute independence, and so there is free will. So how can you necessarily say that Lord Krishna is the cause of someone's service being removed?
Yeah, I understand that, Prabhu. See, Prabhu, see, when it's for our own benefit that we ascribe everything to Krishna. Okay, look at this from this. If we have this fault-finding tendency that if we don't ascribe everything as Krishna's mercy, we go to the negative path of fault-finding tendency. Okay, right? I start finding fault in other people. That hey, this person is the fault, right? And that reduces my own self-esteem. But then we have to understand that if you don't kind of succumb to that fault finding tendency, then you can grow quicker in your bhakti. So everything, look at everything, that how does it help me in my bhakti process? Even for a minute, let's presume, which is not possible without Krishna's interfering to it. Let's presume for a minute that a devotee did it. And let's presume you are able to ascribe that fault to that particular devotee. How is it going to help you in your bhakti? Is it? It's not going to help you in your bhakti. See, if you try to noticing the faults, it doesn't help. It doesn't solve the problem. What I'm trying to say to you. Right? So everybody has faults, right? And once I was listening to a class, and there was discussion about tolerance, that that tolerance should be developed in spiritual life. And somebody stood up and he made a point that from all the things, in all the things that we have to tolerate, devotees are one of them, right? So indeed, we all have to tolerate each other's defects. So if you understand that, yes, Rasala Krishna Prabhu, yes, somebody might be at fault doing it, but then does that make me free of faults? Aren't there any other people whom I have done wrongly something? So as much as I am tolerating other devotees, they are also tolerating me. We all have faults, and different people have different faults. We should ask ourselves, how do I feel if somebody finds a fault in me? Right? So the most important thing that is required for me to persevere on the spiritual path is encouragement, appreciation, and those kind words, right? So let's presume even if somebody did it wrong, but they didn't do it intentionally, and you go and point out to them, hey, you did this wrong to me. That might dishearten that other person. Sometimes what happens is that a person already might be burdened by many things happening in their lives. And then in that state of mind, he or she did something to you unconsciously. Then what will you do? What will happen when you will know, oh, this is wrong. You are at fault. You go and tell that the person you are at fault. And then a person tells you, oh, I'm sorry, I was going through a tough time. How will you feel? You will really feel bad that I found a fault in that person, right? So we don't want to find faults in others. What I'm trying to say is that at the root of everything, try to understand that what your mind is telling you, is it going to help you progress in bhakti, or is it going to pull you down in bhakti? If you ascribe everything to Krishna and you keep telling yourself that everything that is happening to me is Krishna's benevolent plan to bring me closer to his lotus feet, then you will keep progressing. But if you start ascribing, hey, Prem Dham, you did this to me, how is that going to help in your bhakti? It's not going to help in your bhakti for sure. It might affect my bhakti also, because I didn't do it consciously. So I'm just going through some more nitty-gritty details here, but broadly I'm just saying is that try to avoid finding faults in others in general. And also, if you feel that somebody did wrong to you, just let it go, because the other person can never act. When devotees are there, always remember this, at least, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it, but at least I try to remember all the time. Whenever something is happening to us and devotees are involved, always remember Krishna is involved in that too. It can never happen without Krishna's permission. So always just go back to and tell yourself, it's Krishna's benevolent plan. This person was just an instrument. Don't try to ascribe this to others. I'm sorry, I just gave a long answer.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Did it make sense to you, Prabhu?
No, I understand. In the overall scheme of things, I totally agree that we shouldn't find faults in anyone. But my whole point was that that everyone has some sort of a free will, and that you can't blame the Lord Krishna for some actions. When actually each jiva has that free will, and
and
so
yes, each jiva
that's
has
what
free
I
will.
was pointing out.
And yes, the 2 points that I highlighted, I'll just reiterate them. One thing is, if devotees are involved, Krishna is involved there for sure. That's one thing that I always remember. That helps me control my anger or my envy towards the other devotees. And secondly, I have to judge that the outcome, is it going to help me grow in bhakti, or is it going to help me pull down in bhakti? So then if I look at it from this perspective, it doesn't matter when somebody used his free will to hurt me, but the outcome, I'm looking at the bigger picture.
Sure,
So,
sure.
yeah, but I agree with your point. Yes, we all have free wills. It could be somebody's, that tiny free will that he or she is using to hurt us. Yeah, it could be very well the reason there, bro. I agree with you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sorry, Achyuta Radhe Mataji, you asked me something. Did this discussion help you with that also?
Yeah, yes, somewhat. But only thing is that it was like I didn't mean that that to find fault with others. But sometimes it is our fault due to which it can happen that some service is taken away from us.
Yeah.
Then in that situation, is it Krishna acting, or is it we have to accept that it is our doing?
Srimati, so I think you are now bringing out a different concept here, that how guilty should I be if it is my fault, frankly, Yes, the reason could be that I was wrong. I didn't do the service to the best of my capacity. That is why it was taken away from me. But are you going to go down the rabbit hole, the spiral that, go into low self-esteem and, this depression that, oh my God, I'm not good enough, I'm useless. If that's what you're going to go through, then don't ascribe yourself with the fault. Once again, going back to the main principle, is it going to help me grow in bhakti, or is it going to help me pull down in bhakti? So if, let's presume I was at fault, I did that service wrong, I was not doing it to the best of my capacity, but I cannot keep that in my mind and beat myself about it every time. Hey, Premdham, you're not good at service, you're useless. That way, I will not be able to do good in other services also. So ascribe the fault based on whether it's going to help you in bhakti or not. Even if you were at fault, whether you are not at fault. Either of the ways, if you were at fault, you just take it as a slap on your wrist. Okay, yes, I was at fault, I was wrong, I should not make this mistake again. And then just move ahead. But then if that concept of that I was at fault takes you a spiral down into low self-esteem, then don't do it. Then don't describe yourself with the fault. That's fine. Krishna will understand. Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardhan. He knows what's going on in your heart. He will appreciate it that you, just to keep your bhakti steady, you didn't describe that fault to yourself. And that's okay also. So it's a very personal decision you have to make.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. It's just that I just wanted to learn to discriminate properly. Thank you.
Yeah. Then make the discrimination on the basis of bhakti. Everything we do, the discrimination should be on the basis of bhakti. Is it going to help me in my bhakti or not? And then take a decision. We always have that choice. In 24/7, every single moment you have a choice that whatever activity I'm going to do, is it going to take me up in bhakti or is it going to pull me down in bhakti? And always choose, at least try to choose the one that takes me up in bhakti. Everything else is just relative. Who did it? Who didn't do it? You at fault, me at fault. Everything else is relative.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. It does help, really. Thank you.
Okay. And always remember this verse is 10:88:8 if somebody's keeping record. When Krishna is very happy, he starts taking away things from us. He makes us dukkha dukhitam. Okay, so I won't go ahead from here. I think we'll just wrap up. We have 3 minutes left. We did up to verse number. Did we do 10? Or did we do 9? No, we did up to 9. So we'll do the remaining next.